I was addicted to cocaine and alcohol, but I quit doing that 9 months or 10 months into our marriage, almost a year. I quit, and then that just kind of put me on a road of recovery. I was not a nice man. I was an angry, bitter, jaded, cynical, foul-mouthed human being. Very condescending at home. I just could not stop the rage. Just couldn't. I mean, I'd go weeks, months, but then eventually I'd explode and break a bunch of things and scream and holler like a banshee. I have a phobia of dairy. If it's been in the refrigerator too long, I don't care if it's well or not. I get a point and I throw it out. So anyway, she finds this piece of cheese in the trash, and I open the new one, and it just starts. Why did you throw it away? I don't want it. And then she says, well, it's perfectly good. I go, fine, you eat it. And then it just escalates. And I end up on a chair yelling at her, I don't want it. Can you hear me? Are you deaf? I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. She falls to her knees and she's sobbing. God, it was 30 years ago. Anyway, put my son to bed that night, and he goes, Daddy, you win. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you yell, Mommy cries, you win.
Wow.
Went downstairs, I told Tammy, I said, I need help. I have an issue with anger. And that kind of set me on the self-help journey. And then I went through New Age, Buddhism. I was seeking. I was examining my life.
Yeah, you're doing 12-step and they're talking about a higher power. You're an atheist, so you're kind of like, what do I find?
Well, that was it. I mean, and I said, look, if I'm making up a deity, that makes me delusional. I mean, I understand God exists or he doesn't. I don't believe he does. But I also opened my mind to crack. I say I moved from atheism to agnosticism. I knew I didn't know. And I did the prayers. They told me to pray. So I did the 3rd step prayer, which is, I did this every day for years. Remove me from God, I use God, remove me from the bondage of self so that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties so that victory over them others may bear witness to thy strength, thy power, and thy way of life. God has answered those prayers because I go around the world now and to share about how my difficulties were taken away. And I also did the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage, change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Courage and wisdom. Eventually you learn courage and wisdom come from God.
You know, you're on all these steps toward God, but you're not there yet. So how did you get there? How did your life really begin to change?
Tammy was having an affair. And when I found out about it, she was in California. We were living in Arizona. And I'm not breaking any trust. She shared this on a video. I told her to get home. I found out, I called her, and said get home. And I was getting self-righteous. And it was one of those moments where finally it's not me. Finally I got. And had she come home that night, which she was supposed to, I don't know if I'd be married today, because I was loaded for bear. And I wrestled with God that night. Paced my room like a caged cat, waiting for her to get home. And every time I'd get self-righteous, that little voice would go off inside me. Really? Remember the time you stood on a stool in the kitchen? And you remember the time you smashed all the dishes? Remember the time? And the dozens of them. So she didn't come home until 8 o'clock the next morning. And I picked her up at the airport and I was exhausted. I put my arms around her, gave her a kiss on the cheek, and I said, she goes, that's it? I go, baby, we're a mess. We have 2 kids at home that need parents. If this is what you want, then you can have them. I'm not going to stand in your way. But if it's not what you want, we need to do a lot of work and get through this together. And I told her flat out, I'll take 50% of the blame for this mess.
Wow.
And I said, if it goes to 51, 49, we're not going to get through it. She was involved with him for maybe 3 more months. The most gut-wrenching, heartbreaking period of my life.
Wow.
I remember being in Vegas and she was in Jersey and I knew she showed dogs. And I remember this specifically. I had 102 phone calls to her hotel room that week, all hang-ups. because I didn't want him to pick up the phone. But I tried to let her run its course. And in that summer that she was in Ohio with the kids and I was in Arizona, this man that I had met gave me Bible tapes. And I never opened any of them up until that summer. I had about 1.5 years of manila envelopes with Bible tapes in them. And the first one I opened up was Ecclesiastes. Just exhilarated me. Meaningless, meaningless, all is meaningless. And what I got out of that first tape, first sermon I ever really listened to, 45 minutes, life without God will have no meaning. Without meaning in your life, there's no purpose. Without purpose, you might as well off yourself. Suicide. And I just jumped, because that was my 8-year conclusion. I didn't know it. I didn't know there was a name for it, but I was a nihilist. I was listening to all these tapes, and I was moving. I was really, something was stirring in me. And when I heard sermon on Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created, and I found out later Francis Schaeffer called it the most pregnant verse in the Bible. It gives birth to everything else. In the beginning, God. And I fell on my face. I called my friend Philip, and I said, there's a God. I know in my heart and soul there's a God. He goes, yeah, I know. I've been trying to tell you for like 1.5 years. And I go, yeah, but I didn't know that. He goes, what's your problem? I go, blasphemy, cursing him, denying him. And I, through this tears, I said, why would he want me? And he says, have you gotten to the cross? I go, what's that? He goes, oh, can't ruin the ending, you know. And I started listening to everything I could on Jesus and the cross. And the prodigal son, to this day, tears me up. The thought of the father running with open arms to the fallen one. And then the normal reaction by the good son. What does he get? And I realized at that point that Christianity is the only worldview that tells the strong among us to reach back and pick up the weak, pick up the human debris. You know, I've always said when the world breaks a man or a human being, they just toss him in the trash heap and they leave him there. When God breaks a man, it's for a reason, and build him back up.
I know that there's somebody watching today that, a lot of people probably, that, you know, maybe their marriage is on the rocks, maybe they're fighting an addiction, maybe they're angry. They don't know that God is maybe real. And they're not really sure how to move forward with their life or get out of the situation they find themselves in. What encouragement could you give that person?
Pray, whether you believe or not. Fake it, you know, and seek. Jesus said, knock, I'll answer, seek. So swallow your pride, get on your knees, say, I can't do it anymore.